So this time I got to speak with the Sake Mistress in Australia, Simone Maynard. So she is fantastic. She's a sake educator and promoter and doing beautiful creative stuff with sake, like organizing virtual brewery tours in this COVID time, as well as maybe more importantly, creating a beautiful online sake community, the Sake Mistress. How are you?
Good, thank you. How are you? Well, it's tonight here. I guess when I first started working with sake, there were so many men in the industry and so many of them were calling themselves a sake master. And I thought, well, we need a sake mistress. So I wasn't sure initially. I kind of, created that name on social media and thought I'll leave it for a while and see whether, I should keep it or not. And it kind of stuck. And many people quite liked the name. So we all had a bit of a laugh and yep, now I'm stuck with it. So. I mean, I've always loved Japanese culture, and my whole fascination with Japan started when I was a child, and I was really interested in Japanese woodblock prints. I went to art school and was really fascinated by, like I said, Japanese woodblock prints, manga art, and in some of those woodblock prints, they depict sake drinking and the ceremony of drinking sake. And I was always really interested in the ceremony of something, whether it be tea drinking or sake drinking. And as I got older and was of a drinking age, I discovered, well, I guess what's now known as table sake, but I found it fascinating that you would drink an alcohol hot. And so I guess I just fell in love with Japanese food and ended up traveling there in 2003 and realized that sake is not something that you have to have hot. And it was a lot better than what I'd tried in Australia back then. And it just opened my mind to this amazing part of Japanese culture. And then about 10 years ago, I was working in a restaurant in Melbourne, and they asked me to put together a sake list. And I was so excited to take on that project. And I didn't know at the time that anything like a sake sommelier existed, or whether it was possible to pursue sake as part of my hospitality journey. But I put together a list and I bought a whole lot of books on sake, and I met some people that knew a lot more than I did, and I learned a lot from them. And I fell in love with it. I spoke to my customers about it, the little that I knew back then, and everybody just seemed so fascinated by everything I was saying to them. And I thought at the time, well, I don't even really know that much. So if people can be fascinated by that small amount of information, imagine how fascinated they can be if I can learn a little bit more. And the journey kind of started then about 10 years ago, seriously. When I was working for that restaurant, and not long after that, I went back to Japan and just found a great bar that served sake like I'd never tried anything like that before, and my mind was blown. So yeah, it's been ongoing.
That's really fascinating. And now you're doing lots of creative things like the virtual kura tours and.
Well, prior to this whole COVID thing, I had started doing a number of events in Melbourne and just outside of Melbourne as well, some regional events too. And everything from, sake pairing dinners at restaurants to more casual events where we'd just match sake and cheese. So so my events have been going quite well, and everything from staff training and restaurant consultancy, and then of course COVID happened, and about 5 of my events were cancelled, and I was meant to do a tour, take some people to Japan and actually host my first tour later this year. And of course that got put off as well. And so after about a week of feeling sorry for myself, I thought, what can I do? What can I do to still, I guess, keep the sake momentum going through this time? And how can I help the breweries? That was my first focus, was how can I help the breweries if I'm not able to go to venues and pour sake for people and talk about sake to people, then how can I help them? And then I contacted a couple of female brewers, and I'd already made connections with them on social media in the past, and a couple of them I'd actually met in person. And I threw the idea at them, how would you like to do a virtual brewery tour and a bit of a question and answer session to an audience here in Australia? And Miho Imada was the first one that we scheduled, and it was only meant to be a trial session, and we were going to have maybe 12 people from Australia log in and ask questions to Miho and drink her sake. And then I got some interest from people in Japan and other places around the world, although the time zone difference made it really hard for some people to join. And we did the first event, and it was meant to only go for 90 minutes, and poor Miho Imada was chatting to us for about 3 hours. Made the world feel a lot more, or the sake world for me, feel a lot more connected and a lot smaller. And I felt like we could all connect in some way by these online events, even though I couldn't physically be in Japan, or people couldn't physically be at the brewery, touring the brewery or tasting sake over there. And it was a way of connecting the brewers to perhaps a new audience, but also to their loyal drinkers, and just trying to break down the barrier of distance during this crazy time that we've been going through. And I wasn't quite sure how it would take off, but I started then having the brewers contact me about to see if I'd be interested in doing a session with them, and I was like, of course. the Taste with the Toji sessions have just been they've been so rewarding for me, and I hope for the audience as well. And every brewer that we've had as a guest has just got their own personality, and their sake is also different, and the personality really shines through. And I like to keep the meetings that I do in that format of a public forum, so that everybody can see everybody else, and the brewers can see everybody drinking their sake. And as I said, I want the brewers to feel like, just because people can't go and visit them, and because a lot of things in the world have stopped, people haven't stopped drinking their sake. And so I've been drinking a lot of sake over the isolation period, but making some really good connections, and hopefully in some small way doing something good for the industry. Yeah. Personally, not for me. I think, having worked in hospitality for 20 years, I think the industry itself, 20 years ago when I started, there probably were a little bit of there's men and women are treated differently. There's no two ways about that. But the industry has changed in the 20 years that I've been in it, and I think I hold my own pretty well. I don't put up with any kind of sexism or racism or any prejudice, and I try to surround myself with people that are the same. And every place that I've worked, I've made sure that there's a pretty good understanding of that. So personally, I haven't encountered anything. If anything, in the past few years, it's probably been the complete opposite, and a lot more encouragement, like yourself, people like yourself, and people that are wanting to support other women in the industry, which I think is fabulous. Female brewers that I've made connections with, I certainly have a focus on female brewers. I think I feel very passionately about them being the minority amongst roughly 1,000 breweries, and maybe 30 female torgies. So it's not to say that women brew better sake than men, or that men brew better sake than women, but women are still definitely in the minority in that category. And as a woman, I like the idea of being able to help promote other women in the industry, whether it be brewers or other people doing something similar to what I'm doing. Yeah. Look, it's getting better all the time. In the 10 years that I've been, I suppose, more actively involved in the industry, the amount of sake, or the variety of sake that you can get here in Australia now is so much better than it was 10 or even 5 years ago. We have some amazing sake coming into the country. We have some really great importers that really have wonderful relationships with the breweries that they work with, and a real passion for the product. And they are sake specific importers, so they're not just bringing in a lot of products from Japan. They're focused specifically on sake. And so many people now in restaurants are giving it a go. They're giving it a chance on the menu, not just Japanese restaurants. A lot of chefs are really interested in sake now. And I think the travel to Japan was a big thing. So many Australians travel to Japan every single year. And the Japanese food scene is quite big here, especially in Melbourne, where I am. And I think that helps. I think that helps people's curiosity towards sake once they've been to Japan, or they start getting that taste for Japanese cuisine. Then it kind of goes hand in hand. So I think it's in the 10 years that I've been working with sake, I've seen some huge changes. We've still got a long way to go. There's still a lot of people that I speak to that think it's a spirit. They think you have to drink it hot, and you have to have it in the little ceramic carafe, in the little ceramic cup, and you have to shoot it like a spirit. So there's still some people that think that way about sake, and they might have had one bad experience with it, so they never go back to it. But a lot more restaurants now, a lot more restaurants you go to, you will see sake on the menu. Not as many as I'd like, but we're getting there. And there's a lot of people doing similar work to what I'm doing here in Australia, men and women, which is fantastic. So 10 years ago, there were some people who were the stalwarts in the industry here in Australia, and they're still actively promoting sake, but the interest has grown so much. 10 years ago, I really didn't hear a lot about people doing these sort of, sake events and sake courses and all of this sort of thing. So it's great to see it evolving. I think as I said, through doing these events, I just hope that if I can get one new sake drinker with every event that I do. But no, I think in 10, well, who knows where we'll be in 10 years time. I mean, I tend not to think too far ahead into the future, because all we have is now.
Right.
I would certainly like to see more people drinking sake, and I would like to in some way be involved in that, in whatever capacity that is. And if I can still be doing what I'm doing now, and traveling to Japan on a regular basis, and learning. I mean, I'm still learning. I think we're all still learning. You never stop learning. So much to learn, and I think that's why I find it so fascinating, because it's not just a simple subject. There's so much history, and there's so much variety, and there's such a craft to it. And every brewery does something a little bit differently, even though the principles are the same. So yeah, I think I hope to still be learning. Maybe that's my answer. Another answer maybe to your in 10 years time question, all going well, I'd love to maybe be doing something that can combine all of my passions. So painting, pottery and sake in some way. So whether that be designing sake labels, or making sake cups and sake labels, I don't know. But I have kind of stepped away a little bit from that creative pursuit, because sake has taken over for the last probably 3 to 4 years, especially. So a lot of my friends are like, Simone, when are you going to paint again? When are you going to start drawing again? When are you going to start making pottery again? Well, it's soon. Maybe I can find a way again to combine my passions. Feel like I'm a creative person, so I do like to be creating or doing something creative at all times. But I feel like sake is such a creative thing anyway. I really love what you're doing, Sarika. I think we all need to support each other. Not just in the world of sake, obviously as human beings. I think that we all need to be more supportive of each other, and especially when people are in the same field. I think sake is one of these industries where it shouldn't be too competitive. I think I've worked in the wine industry, and there was a lot of competition in the wine industry, and that it kind of ruined it for me a lot, because I like the idea of collaborating and sharing the passion and sharing the love and sharing the joy, rather than fighting for something. Obviously fighting for what you believe in, but not sort of. I don't like competition. I think we're all working towards the same goal. So I think I just love seeing people, especially from all over the world, uniting, and I guess I just want to see more of that. I love connecting with people through sake. I've met so many wonderful people, and I hope to continue to do that. And I just want to see more people falling in love with sake, and the same way you have, the same way I have. I guess when you look at how it's changed over the years, and like anything, tradition, sometimes it's hard to keep tradition alive, and I just don't want I don't want the number of breweries to be less and less and less because less people are drinking sake. Hence why I want more people to drink sake, so that the industry can thrive.